Hello, hello. Welcome back to Fertility Village Live. We're here.
Hi,
Hi, Carolyn. How are you?
so good. How are you? Welcome back.
I know, first episode of 2026.
I
And what
love that.
a guest.
Fantastic. I love that.
Yeah, we're so pumped to be back. This is our first episode of 2026. If you're tuning in tonight, welcome to Fertility Village Live. We just noticed one little thing, and I'll mention it because Fertility Village Live, if you tuned in at all last season in 2025, we were every single Wednesday night, and we took a little bit of a break for January. We're back for this year, and we're going every second week this year. So starting this week, every second Wednesday night from now on, you can tune in. We're going to have lots of great guests. Go follow us on Instagram at fertility__village. And you'll get all the updates about what we're talking about, the guests that are coming on board, who our hosts are for this season. Super excited about all the changes. So yeah, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thanks. Thanks for having me.
It only made sense because you were our first guest of our first season last year. So I'm like, you know what? It's time for an update. There has been a ton of stuff happening in our country, in all the countries in the world this year. I think we can all agree things are getting a little crazy out there. But I think most importantly in the fertility community, what's happening, like you are the go-to, the fertility queen, we call you, when it comes to all of the information about Canadian funding and what's going on there. So we're really excited to have you, and to hear about updates about Fertility Matters Canada, where people can get involved with you as well. Our organizations work so closely together on so many different things. We have the same North Star, we like to say, and serving the patient community. So I'm going to shut up and let you tell us about it. For those that don't know who you are and what you do, why don't you give us a little bit of an intro to who is Carolynn Dubé and what are you doing here?
Thank you. Well, thank you, Erin, and to your whole team over at Oasis. We just love the work that you do, and we're so glad that we can partner with you. You take such great care of the patient community in terms of support, and it is such a critical piece of anybody who's on this fertility journey, no matter which way and how many twists and turns they've been on. Being able to connect with the support community is so important. So you and Tiff and all the team are just so important. So I am, for those who don't know, my name is Carolynn Dubé. I'm the executive director with Fertility Matters Canada. And I've been here, it'll be 11 years at the end of this month. Like,
wow.
Wild, when you
wild
about that. Yeah, it's crazy to me. And Fertility Matters Canada is really the voice of the Canadian fertility patients. So we are a charity, and we're the only organization Canada-wide that provides support, drives education and awareness, and advocates on behalf of the 1 in 6 Canadians, arguably more than 1 in 6 Canadians who made it access to fertility and family building care, on their journey to achieve their dream of taking home a baby. And so I'm so fortunate to be in this space and to connect with groups like yours to ensure that Canadians have access. FMC loves to be a hub, so we'd like to be able to connect patients with resources and groups and experts, clinics across the country who are doing really amazing work to help them on their journey. We are not the experts, but we act sort of as that hub. So we're really fortunate to be able to do that, and to be, the organization is over 40 years old at this point. So it's really fantastic to be able to, And I started here because I'm a patient myself.
Yeah.
And so although I'm on the other side of my fertility journey, really, I understand what it's like, how it feels.
Yeah.
And we really, truly honor connecting and staying connected with the patients and all of the different stories so that they can continue to be the voice and really the machine, the engine behind the work that we continue to do in 2026.
Yeah, I think like I love how you explain it is like FMC is like the voice of the patient community, because ultimately like you guys are the ones speaking on all of our behalf to the governments, to the, you know, the provincial, the federal, you know, to the clinics, to all of the different facets that support a fertility journey. So that's such a good way to put it. I also 100% agree with you. Like the fertility journey doesn't leave you. So if your journey's 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 40 years ago, the original like IVF patients out there, like it does not leave you. And I feel like I talk to people every single day who are like, oh yeah, I went through that, or I struggled, or I had, you know, multiple miscarriages or whatever. And like, there's just no easy way into motherhood, in my opinion. And infertility, you know, is just, it's such a difficult journey. So that is why we're here, both of us doing the work that we do and supporting the patient community and just really wanting to make sure that like, you know, how to advocate for yourself and you know how to, you know, what access you have to funding, what access you have to treatment. Like it's so important. It's something I think, and maybe you can, you know, relate to this, but for me, I didn't know I could, there's so much I didn't know that I could do on my journey. And so I just feel like it's so important, that education piece that you talk about, to make sure people are aware and they understand and they know how to, access all of the things that they can access. Get as much help as you can. Do not do this alone. Like that is the message, you know?
Yes. It's so important. You can't do this alone. Thank you for saying that, because every time I look back at, you know, who I was when I started out, you know, I wasn't working at Fertility Matters when I found out that I was going to need IVF in order to have a baby. And I wish back then that there was an oasis and that I was able to access, you know, 13 or 14 years ago, the information to sort of normalize it, to show me like, oh, it's really important to connect to a community. Because it's really hard.
Mm-hmm. So hard.
It makes it so much easier when you have the information, the resources. And that's part of, you know, why I'm still in the industry. I think like I have such a deep rooted passion to pave the way a bit, like to sort of clear the
the shit. We can say it.
Right? Exactly. To clear all the shit.
Yeah.
You know, as much as I can, and that's why it's so important to bring together the stories and share the stories and bring together the people so that you can sit in a community, you can go to meetings, you can sit in a support group, like just online as part of like a virtual online chat group, to say, you might not be able to, you know, you might not be comfortable sharing your name, your story, your voice, not like that, then that's okay.
Yeah.
But to just sort of read that other people, are going through this. Other people have the same questions.
Yeah.
They're struggling in their relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Really having a challenge, like showing up to work and figuring out how you're going to pay for this. And like, it just helps make you feel normal and so much less alone.
Yes, totally. That validation is so important. And like, it's the ultimate Me Too movement of like, find people that get it, you know, it helps. It really helps. Yeah. Well, I'd love to get into this conversation about funding, and you are the expert in this field, especially in Canada. So my first big question for you is, from your perspective, how would you describe the fertility care landscape in Canada right now? And we don't have to compare it to our neighbors down south or anybody else in the world, but like in Canada, how would you describe it?
All right. So,
or compare it if you want. I don't care.
So I think, so the term that I use to describe and how what we're going to talk about right now is actual access to funding, and we'll talk to access to care providers in clinics too. So those are the two things when I think about access to care, getting those two things, because the two biggest barriers for anyone living in Canada, for the most part, is the cost, because it's upfront and out of pocket most often. And access to a fertility specialist and a clinic where you can actually receive the treatment and the care that you need.
Yeah.
So in Canada, the country of universal healthcare, where, you know, healthcare is, you know, you can go and you can not get a bill for the things you need treatment for. Fertility care does not fall under the protections of Canada's Healthcare Act, and it is a healthcare issue. It's recognized by the World Health Organization. The disease. And it doesn't matter why you need to access fertility care in order to build your family, whether it's because you're a heteronormative couple, you're a single person, you might be part of the LGBTQIA+ community, you're still diagnosed with infertility, and that is not protected in Canada. And so part of our advocacy work, not only as an organization, but there's so many provincial groups, and I know a lot of the work that, you know, Oasis does is advocating for access and looking at the different stakeholders who play a part. And so in Canada, we have healthcare is delivered provincially, of course, and we have 10 provinces and 3 territories who all make decisions on how they're delivering their healthcare spending. So it is a patchwork, because I am so hopeful, and we have celebrated so much over the past, I'm going to say, not even 18 months, really since November of 2024. We have 9 provinces and 1 territory with funding programs in place. If we had talked 3 or 4 years ago, it's like 6 provinces, no territories. And even some of the provinces that had programs in place, like Ontario and New Brunswick, they have amplified their programs. They've made changes. Prince Edward Island is in the middle of like really looking at their program and figuring out, okay, what's working, what's not working, and is this how we want our program to look, and is it best for our residents? So I always say it's a patchwork. Because no matter which province you are in, there's no program that is the same. We have everything from funded IVF cycles in Ontario. So when you go to a clinic, if you get a funded IVF cycle, you're not paying upfront and out of pocket for that funded cycle. You get one. So it's a huge cost. You know, you're probably saving $12,000. If you're in Nova Scotia, or Manitoba, it is a refundable tax credit. So you're paying upfront and out of pocket for all of your treatment, all of your medication, those types of things. Maybe there are surrogacy costs or travel. You submit your receipts annually, and after you file your taxes with the CRA, you file with the province, and then you get a refund of 40% of your money, which is fantastic. In fact, in Manitoba, you know, every year you can submit $20,000 worth of receipts, and you get up to $16,000 back. So what I always find super interesting, because people say to me, Carolyn, like, what's the best program? Like, what is the ideal model? Ultimately, we don't want anybody paying out of pocket for healthcare. However, that's what's happening in Ontario and Quebec, but you only get one IVF cycle. You're not paying that upfront.
Not enough in most cases.
Right?
And no costs, right? So like, like that cost could, in my case, $3,000 one cycle, $7,000 the next cycle. Like, anyway.
That's the thing. And so, I mean, that is huge. Then you have programs for, and I will use, I'll go back to Nova Scotia as an example, or even Manitoba. You can, you know, you're paying for your drugs, your medication, your travel, whatever those costs are. But you can submit receipts. So you pay up front and out of pocket, but you can submit receipts year after year.
Right.
You're able to get money back for multiple cycles, whether that's because you want to go, you had a successful cycle and now you're going back for a sibling, or you've had multiple failed cycles, which is typical for most people. You're not taking a baby after cycle number 1. So it's a real challenge to say, like, what's the best program that we have in Canada? Because it really depends. And like I said, it is a real patchwork of what's out there.
There's no, and I was going to say there's no perfect thing. But yeah, the perfect thing is like cover everything, all of it, all the time for everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
That doesn't exist.
No.
And I think it's interesting, like in Canada, our healthcare is provincial. So it's governed by the different provinces. And so, yeah, we all live in the same country, but you go to, Alberta and there's zero coverage. You come to Ontario and you get like, a certain amount. And did I just see an announcement about the tax credit in Ontario officially for this year?
Yeah, so the Ontario now has a tax credit. So not only they just invested
150 million. Yeah.
250 million
Yeah.
into their program. And yes, there's an additional tax credit. So you have your free IVF cycle. And for those people who have access to that, you now have a tax credit of, I believe it's 25%, that goes towards other, expenses, other cycles, IUI, drugs, travel. So that is now implemented, which is fantastic.
Amazing.
Similar to Quebec has a more similar model.
Yeah. So with the our healthcare being provincially regulated, but in the last election year when Mark Carney got like elected as the the leader of our country, he made a pretty big stake that like I'm going to cover IVF for all Canadians. And you wonder, was he like trying to compete with like the American politics at the time? And I don't want to get like political on our live show or anything, but like, what have you guys heard being advocates at the Ottawa level for patients across Canada? Like, where are we at with his promise to Canadians? Do you know anything? Like, can you update us? Can you give us any sort of insight into, where things are at or what you're hearing? And like, has it been a year yet?
Yeah, almost. It'll be a year in April.
Yeah.
So, yes. And listen, to get something in a federal election campaign platform is huge. Like that's a promise. That wasn't just a mandate letter. And I don't mean even just a mandate, even to have it in your mandate letter, which actually our previous Liberal government had, the Minister of Wage and the Minister of Health had in their mandate letters from Justin Trudeau, access, to figure out more affordable ways for Canadians to access fertility care. But to get it in a campaign platform is really huge. And part of the work that we've been doing over the past 2.5, 3 years has really been working and advocating and meeting with all levels of government, all party stripes at the federal level. And when that announcement was made, actually I was sitting on the pool deck on a Saturday morning during Easter weekend.
Wow.
In Fredericton, New Brunswick, at a hockey tournament with my children, when I got a call from our GR company that said an announcement was just made, and we had no idea.
Wow.
And actually, their team, Carney's campaign team, credited at Fertility Matters, because of our work. They said the Liberal government had decided to put that into the campaign platform, and they realized it's a really important aspect. Listen, it is a healthcare issue. It is a mental health care issue.
Yes.
Fertility and infertility impacts. It is not just a women's issue. It is not just a men's issue. It is a whole person, a whole community's issue. And it really has significant impacts on economies, workplace, productivity in the workplace. So when we look at this globally, we think about, okay, and I mean, listen, anybody watching this, Erin, I am sure you have heard it multiple times over. People saying, it is not my job to pay for you to have kids. You can't afford to pay for IVF. You can't afford to have kids. We hear that. We hear that a lot. But the reality is, Canada in 2024, we just have brand new data from Stats Canada. Like, we have for the last 3 years had our lowest birth rates on record as a country. And this is not just a Canada issue. This is like global issue. And it is not just because everybody's infertile and having trouble and needs fertility. Like, people are choosing not to have kids for lots of different reasons. However, when we have a country's birth rate is intimately tied to the economic health of the country. In order for us to be replacing our population, we need the fertility rate or birth rate needs to be 2.1 births per woman is what that stat says. And Canada's in 2024 was something like 1.16, something like that. Don't quote me. I have to look up that exact
The
number.
lowest it's ever been.
It's the lowest it's ever been. I know PEI's was 1.1. I just did a presentation at their legislature a couple of weeks ago, so I do know that data, which was lower than Canada's birth rate or sort of global rate. So we are not replacing our population, and we are not replacing our population with immigration. Immigration is a an important part of population stability and population. But if we're looking at think about the strain on healthcare right now, the strain on people paying taxes to keep up with maintaining roads and bridges and all of the things. 30 years from now, when all the baby boomers, or not even 30 years from now, Canada is set to be what is called a super aged country by the early 2030s.
Wow.
And so when in the conversations, and I have met with politicians from across all of the political stripes, and never once have I had a conversation that someone said, terrible idea. Not
Yeah.
This is an issue that affects everybody. It affects every party, and everybody understood the importance of helping people have families and build families and help, have a baby and maybe support our population. We're really struggling with housing right now as a country. Like, how are we, making sure everybody has a home if we're taking people into the country? So this is one of the things, arguably, if someone's having a baby, they're taking a baby home to a home that already exists. We're growing our population without putting additional strain on our housing market while the infrastructure is sort of So that was part of the impetus behind that decision. Now, it was not in budget 2025 this past fall. I do know they are actively having discussions at the federal level about, okay, so this was in there. Health is looking at it. So I don't have anything to report. However, I do know that there is a look, and that sexual and reproductive health in particular has been made, at least the health minister has said it is a priority ministry. So we will continue to have the conversations and to push forward. And as soon as we have information, we will be sharing it with everybody.
Yeah. I just thought it was so fascinating, and it's happening in other areas too. And I don't want to go too far off conversation, but in the prescription drug space, federally funded drug plan, there's from a federal level, they're talking a lot more about other ways to support Canadians that's not at the provincial health level. And so I'm finding it interesting, this sort of molding together of provincial and federal health programs. And I just so curious as to how all of this is going to work. So I'm really interested and excited to see how and if and when they're going to roll this out and how it's going to work. But I guess ultimately just thank you for continuing to advocate and going to, that level for Canadians and making sure that, we're still at the top of the list and the conversation, a big part of the conversation when it comes to trying to equalize care provincially across Canada for everybody, because it would just it'd be a game changer for so many people,
Absolutely. And to your point, Erin, we are asking the stakeholders. So not only are we advocating at the federal level, we are actively involved in conversations at provincial levels. I mentioned earlier, PEI is actively looking at what they've had a program. In fact, they weren't one of the first, but they certainly had programs in place before a lot of provinces like Newfoundland, British Columbia, Saskatchewan, Alberta, who doesn't have a program still. They're the only province in the country without one. But they're actively looking at, okay, this is a program, this is utilization rate, how do we make it better for our residents? So not only provincial and territorially, we're also, you have to have the federal government in there because, as I said, not only is this a health issue, not only is it a mental health issue, it's certainly an economic issue. That's the workforce impacts, in particular, women in the workforce. We can talk about that more if you want to. But there's a place that we also advocate, and I know you do a lot of work in this space with employers and the extended health benefits are, that are in place for fertility and family building with employers. And so we look at all of the stakeholders to say, listen, this is the issue, and it's not the responsibility of one person or organization or government. It is the responsibility of everybody.
Exactly.
That's why it's really important. And so the conversation needs to continue. We need to continue to educate people, educate governments, and empower people to also have the conversation. So whether it's employees talking to their human resources or their, the upper echelon in the C-suite, we're seeing change. So I have a lot of hope. And I think, in 2026 and beyond, there is no place but to go up from here.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, even since I started working with an Oasis and sort of moving into more of the fertility benefit space, once I met you, and it's only been 3 years, and I've seen enormous change in how coverage has changed and how many more employers are participating in fertility and family building benefits. I'm going to cough. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
I just, it's so fascinating, how fast it actually is moving. But I think that's the work of the patient voice. It's the work of, that Fertility Matters is doing, and making sure that people know, you can talk about this. We're crushing the stigma, trying to make sure, that you don't have to suffer in silence. And it's good to talk about this. And the more that we do that and share our stories and raise our voices, the more the people coming in behind us that are just going through the treatment or are starting on that journey are going to feel comfortable. And there's a whole generation coming in behind us into the workforce right now who are, they had their auntie or their sister or their mom. Maybe they're a product of IVF themselves, and they're going I'm terrified. I'm going to struggle with this, because they've heard how hard it is. It's somebody who went through cancer, and what they struggled with and how hard it is, and you're I'm terrified that's going to happen to me. But also we can't choose, who gets wet when it rains. It just happens to everybody. It's all sort of equal. So I think that generation is hyper aware of what is my employer doing for me? What is my country doing for me? Where am I getting the supports I need for the things that really matter the most? And becoming parents is a pretty big freaking deal. And I think that if you can't have access to starting a family, or you struggle to have access, then it needs to be definitely at the front of the minds of the politicians and of the employers and of, so.
Absolutely.
We could just go on and on and on and on and on. I know how many hotels have we sat in drinking wine, talking for hours about this stuff, we just need to.
Yeah. You're right. It's one of those, when you think about it, when you really think about it, it's one of the most important pieces, one of the most important aspects of so many people's lives. Not everybody wants to have kids. Not everybody's going to choose to have kids. Perfect. That's fantastic. But for those who really want to, the impact on them, and the longer they are waiting for that positive pregnancy test, the more challenging it becomes. For people who are diagnosed with infertility, the data shows it has the same impact on your mental health as being diagnosed with a more significant health concern like cancer. Your point earlier, we all know someone, and this younger generation coming up is oh, I know someone. In fact, more recently, for the first time ever, we get people reach out, as I'm sure you do. People reach out and say, listen, I'd really like to get involved. I'd love to volunteer with your organization. How can I get involved? If fertility has impacted my life in XYZ way. We had someone reach out. It was a male, and he says, I'm an IVF baby, and I've just finished a professional degree, and I would really like to get involved with your advocacy work.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
Wow. To have, yes, so many of our advocates and so many of our volunteers they have walked the path. They are in it now. They are on the other side of it, whatever that other side looks like. But now and of course, listen, IVF, the first IVF baby, Louise Brown, is she just turned 50. She's getting closer to 50. Like,
Yeah, I
she's
think,
like,
45. Yeah.
like, it's still young. It's such a young medicine when
Yeah.
you think medicine in as a whole. But we're having, these conversations now with kids born and are here because of IVF. And how cool is it to be able to have their voices as part of the conversation?
Yeah, amazing. I love that. Yeah, and I think we'll start to see, I mean, even in schools we're getting super off track, but I don't care. We can talk about anything on here. The conversations in schools changing. And I love Elizabeth talks about this, the first IVF baby in the US, about how, like, when she was in school, she put up her hand and she's like, yeah, like, I was born, I was created in a lab. And I think that's going to become more normal conversation for our kids at school. Like, there's probably more than one IVF conceived child in my son's class, like, and I think it's getting more and more common.
And you're going to notice that. What's going to happen is, because he's going to get older. He's how old?
4.5.
Yeah. So I had a very cool experience this past fall. So my son, my eldest, is 12. So he was playing on a new hockey team. And in a town that we used to travel to this town to play on this team. And we were having I was having a conversation with one of the moms, and she said, I saw that you work in fertility. Well, my son, who is IVF too. And we got talking. I said, what? Tell me your story. Like, tell me everything. And she had gone through, I'm in Atlanta, Canada, and I did my fertility treatment at that time in Halifax. And she said, yeah, like, we were in Halifax, and this is when we were going there. And I thought, oh my God, like, we were there at the same time. Like, kids are, 8 months apart or something like that. And I said, like, she had started at this time. And the funnier part of this story is, I said, I'm going to have to tell Bren, that's my son, my eldest name. And she said, oh, well, he already knows, because her son, she had told her son, she said, oh, Bren is IVF too. So they already had a conversation in the dressing room. That's it was like a cool, so you will certainly experience it.
Yeah.
Driving home with him that night from practice, and I was like, tell me about this. Like, oh yeah, we talked about it, and he's from Halifax, and like, it's not like no big deal, which of course it shouldn't be, but it's a very cool experience with this kid who he has never met, who he's become really good friends with. Like, they bond.
Yeah, that's so cool. That's so special.
Yeah, anyway, I'm sure, I know you will have that experience, and it's wait for you to tell me what that was like.
Yeah, because I went to support group and made such a strong community, like, all of the women who are in my support group and had success around the same time, like, we've raised our IVF babies together. So they all know each other and, like, have this similar stories. A lot of them had the same doctor because of the situation where we live and how we all connect with the same doctor in the city. So it was really interesting. But yeah, they're growing up together, and so they're not going to be alone either. Like, they really will have community too. And I think that that's so important, that they think they're no different to any other kid. It's really cool.
Yeah, and hopefully, like, those kids, many of them will want to just have, like, they'll spontaneously have kids with their partners on their own, like, that's.
Yes, they probably won't struggle like, have no issues at all. It's just, it really is, as common as it is, it's quite random. Like, it feels like there really is no method to the madness. I mean, maybe if it comes down to, like, a PCOS or an endometriosis diagnosis that might be familial, or, like, come down the gene pool line, it could be something like that. But for the most part, like, it doesn't seem to be, there's not a whole lot of, there's not a ton of research yet, surprisingly.
Exactly.
The cause is just a lot of, things kind of all tied together. Yeah.
I agree. And so hopefully with this news, so we'll always have these patient advocates, but all of a sudden, hopefully these kids that are now here because of this amazing science.
Yeah.
Some of them will be able to use their voices to help amplify
for sure. Yeah.
the conversation for those people who are going through it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's amazing. Tell me a little bit about what you're hearing from patients right now when it comes to access and wait time. So, I mean, provincially, we'll go back into the provincial coverage a little bit, talk about what provinces, for those who might just be tuning in for the first time or listening to this after the live, about funding in Canada, and what provinces, maybe just go quickly whip through the provinces. I don't think we did that. We kind of just talked around like about some different things, but really whip through the different provinces, what has coverage, what is the coverage. And then I think most excitingly in Ontario, that's where I'm located, with the addition of the new funding, the wait times right now are like zero.
Yeah.
Like, we're hearing people in our support groups just getting in for funded cycles like straight away, where it was like a 24-month wait up until like 6 months ago. Yeah. So it's incredible. Like it's really exciting.
Yeah. So I completely agree. So two of the things, of course, are the access, the funding, and access to fertility specialists or clinic. So if we go east to west, I will go like super high level and start in Newfoundland. So Newfoundland had a program. They actually just revamped their program and have a new program in since almost a year old now, where patients can access. Okay, and just as a caveat, there are 10 funding programs, they're all very different. So
you got this. I know I'm like putting you on the spot. Listen, folks, if you're listening and you're curious, you can always go FMC website. You can go look it up on your provincial.
You can come over to FMC's website, like click on the links. Like, I encourage you to still go to your provincial. To find out what that funding is. However, high level, Newfoundland, $20,000. It can be used across, like you can split it. You don't have to it's not a one-time use. You can split it over multiple cycles. One of the other massive challenge in Newfoundland is that you can't do IVF in Newfoundland. There is no IVF center. They have two amazing REIs. So an REI is a fertility physician. Two amazing REIs there. The doctors, Murphy, no relation. They're not married.
Classic Newfoundland.
They're so fantastic. They have a great IUI program. So if you're someone who needs to use intrauterine insemination, that is an option. They have a really good program there. But if you need IVF, you need to fly to another province.
Wow.
And that is a huge barrier, because not only financially does it add to the cost of IVF and the medications, but it's flight, travel, like the hotel, food, and having that conversation with your employer. You're not flying over for a knee scope or such and such a hernia repair where you can you're in for a day surgery, in for a couple of days, and you go home and you heal, and then it's done, it's over with, and you move on with your life. It is so unpredictable, and it can, those early morning appointments over several weeks, over several months, over several years, makes it incredibly challenging for patients.
Yeah.
So kudos to Newfoundland. They have a new program, and rumor has it that they are going to be building an IVF center in Newfoundland, but been challenging to get confirmation on where things are and if it's actually happening. So moving east to west from Newfoundland to my home province, Nova Scotia. Nova Scotia has had a fertility tax credit since I think it's about 5 years old now. So it's a fertility and surrogacy tax credit. They have one IVF clinic in Halifax. Their wait times, I don't want it at one point about a year ago, it was about probably up to a year, potentially up to a year and a half. But I do know they have a brand new physician starting there. And so that is going to help open up and reduce the wait times. So wait times could be in and around 6 months right now. I'm not exactly sure. Again, should really check with Atlantic Fertility about that. So in Nova Scotia, 40% tax credit. You pay for everything up front and out of pocket. You have to do your services in Nova Scotia. Once you file your federal taxes and get everything back, you can then file for that tax credit and get reimbursed. The maximum reimbursement you can get is $8,000.
Okay.
Moving over to New Brunswick, the Susan Holt government just released a brand new program this spring. So it is a one-round fully funded IVF program,
Okay.
which includes any expense up to $20,000 to be reimbursed to the household.
Wow.
It's one-time reimbursement, which is really great. It's up from the $5,000 reimbursement that previously existed. It is not, unlike Ontario, you still have to pay upfront and out of pocket. However, it is not a tax rebate. So once you finish, if you finish your cycle on October 31st and you have $20,000 worth of receipts, you submit them, and the program, I think they reimburse you sort of within a 6-week period.
Okay.
So not ideal. Still, you're paying upfront and out of pocket, but 6 weeks, is sometimes a bit easier to manage that debt load than waiting for taxes and those types of things.
Yeah.
Prince Edward Island right now they're in the middle of reviewing their program. They've been really active, which is really fantastic. However, their current program, so number one, no fertility specialist, no clinic on island. So if you're in PEI, you need to leave PEI to get any specialist to see you at all.
Wow.
Which, is a bit of a challenge. So they typically to Halifax or Moncton. Their current program is sliding scale based on your household income.
Okay.
And PEI actually has one of the lowest income, household incomes in the country. So the sliding scale is a reimbursement of $5,000 to $10,000. I think in order to get $10,000, the household income has to be $50,000 or $60,000, something like that. And I mean, when the grand total of things is $20,000 plus, it's a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
But they are reevaluating their program, and we've been actively having conversations there. So I'm really hopeful that they will make some changes to help residents. Moving into Quebec. Quebec has, a pretty at one point they had a globally renowned program 10 years ago. 3 rounds of IVF and everything included. It was really, really fantastic. They now have an IVF program. Some medications are covered under RAMQ, so that's their provincial medical, whatever that's called, agency.
Yeah.
Provincial, service. They also have a bit of a tax credit, so pretty good coverage, and I think relatively good wait times, not too stressful. Ontario, no wait times. Ontario, if you're in the GTA, or if you're going to go to a clinic in the GTA, listen, you've got 18 IVF centers to choose from. So if you are waiting too long, you want a second opinion, you didn't like the doctor, whatever, change jobs, and now you're in Mississauga, you have options. Yeah. Unlike the majority of the country. So
it's unique here in Ontario for sure.
Yeah. If you're in Thunder Bay, that's a whole different story.
Yeah, exactly.
Because have to get down to an IVF center. I mean, even for you, at least in Barrie, you can, you can do satellite monitoring.
Yeah.
It kind of reduces that stress.
Yeah. Within 2 hours, I can go to 15 different centers.
Totally. Exactly. And now they have the 25% tax credit. So not only have we reinvested $250 million in this program, people are able to access, you can call a clinic. And in Ontario, the other nice thing, because some clinics you have to be referred by your family physician. It's another huge barrier for people. Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, a lot of the other provinces. Ontario, you can just call.
Yeah, depending. We've heard mixed reviews.
That's it.
Clinics. Yeah.
Manitoba is a refundable tax credit used multiple times. So you can submit receipts annually up to $20,000 and get $16,000 back, which is really fantastic. Again, paid up front and out of pocket. Yeah. However, $16,000 would come back to you. So, I mean, that's pretty fantastic if you carry that debt load or find that money. The challenge is there's one IVF center in Manitoba, and when you think about the geography of Manitoba,
it's huge.
It's a challenge.
Yeah.
In the wintertime in Manitoba, when you think about these things.
Yeah.
Moving over to Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan just implemented a program, very surprisingly, actually. They have the Saskatchewan Party, a pretty conservative party, and had been really closed off to conversations, and then announced a program in their provincial election a year and a half ago, and did good on their, like they made good on their promise. So they're 50% tax credit for IVF. I believe it's just, I'm not sure if medications are covered in there, but again, Saskatchewan, one IVF center in Regina. Moving into Alberta, multiple clinics. You've got a couple of clinics in Calgary, a couple of clinics in Edmonton. They are the only province with no funding and not really a promise of anything. I know there's a lot of Fertility Alberta's the advocacy group out there. They're having a lot of conversations, but nothing's solidified right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then we're moving into BC. BC launched a brand new program this spring. Surprisingly, you know, sometimes you think about BC, you're thinking, oh, they would be a province that absolutely would have a program.
Yeah.
With pharmacare and implementation of some of those things. So they've got a brand new program that just launched this past spring. Access to care. They've got lots of clinics in the Vancouver area, Victoria. But they're funding within 5-6 weeks for the wait list for almost every clinic or all clinics in the country for 2 years was shut off. That's the demand. The funding within 5 weeks of the program launching, 6 weeks of the program launching, they weren't taking patients on their wait list for 2 years.
Wow.
They hadn't guaranteed the funding after 2 years, I believe. So as amazing as it is, it also, like, it shows the demand, obviously.
A huge demand. That's wild.
Mm-hmm. However, you know, if you're patients are diagnosed every day.
Yeah.
And patients decide every day, okay, I'm ready to grow my family. If you're a member of the queer community and you're like, okay, let's do this. And you can't access funding now because
2 years.
that's like, it's, you know, so you can see that it's just and you can see the inequities across all of these different things from province. Yeah. And then if you move up north, Yukon has, they had a fertility, like a travel credit. If you had to travel for surrogacy or IVF, you could, like, a travel and accommodation. And they just launched about a year ago, I think, an IVF, like a program to support patients who need to access IVF and surrogacy. None of it, and Northwest Territories don't have a program yet. So
no programs, no clinics.
No, of course. And so that northern travel, you know, like, it is, again, it's trying to get access to not only the funding to pay for this, not only the time off work, but how the heck do I get to a clinic? And one of the challenges we hear quite often from patients is, especially in areas where they don't have access to clinics, and I'm going to say, like, remote. I'll use, so I'm from Cape Breton in Nova Scotia. It's 4 hours from Halifax, say. And, you know, I had a girlfriend whose father is a family physician there. She contacted me one time. She lives in Alberta, and actually she had IVF. She had done IVF out there. I had already, you know, I've been in this role. And she said, my dad doesn't know what, he has a patient, or he keeps seeing patients. He's like, I don't know what to do with them because I don't have the information to send them to a clinic. So I told them, you know, okay, here's a clinic number in Halifax. But something as simple as that, they're 4 hours away from a clinic. So, and in Sydney, you're not like a remote, it's not remote.
No.
It's the access to that information from your primary healthcare provider. So in an area like the Northwest Territories, or, you know, northern parts of lots of provinces, maybe, if you don't have a physician that's going to be able to give you the information, you don't know what your options are. It's really challenging.
Yeah. Well, you rely on organizations like FMC. We've had women join our support groups before from the Northwest Territories, from places with access. And it's so heartbreaking. Like, it's already so heartbreaking. But for them to be like, I don't even know how I'm going to get to a clinic, or how I'm going to, you know, it's so sad. It's so difficult. So yeah, we are fortunate where we live that we have access to a lot, but so many Canadians don't. So thank you for the work that you're doing to continue. I want to hear more. We've got probably 10 minutes. We started late, so we can go a little late, but we want to hear about FMC, what's happening. I feel like there's a lot of excitement happening over there at the moment. So fill us in. Tell us what's going on.
So, I mean, things are obviously like in terms of the work that we do, of course, we provide that support, education, awareness, and the advocacy. So we're working on all of those pillars. And for a long time, you know, we don't have a huge staff. It's Darlene and I, and Nicole in our marketing department. But we've got some very exciting news. And actually, the official announcement just came out earlier this week. We received. We're one of the only fertility organizations that has received funding from the Sexual and Reproductive Health Fund, which is through WAGE, the Federal Ministry of Wage, Women and Gender Equality. And we've got a really big project that is going to help so many Canadians once we build this thing, help so many Canadians access or figure out the access points.
Okay.
And as a result of this funding, we just awarded it in December. So it's brand new.
Brand new.
And it's time limited, you know, it's not forever. But we've just hired 2 new staff at FMC for the first time. So I can't wait to introduce them to the world.
Yeah.
Really, really excited. You know, so we sort of doubled our team overnight, and which you know is going to help us, like, our impact increase, and help so many more people understand their options, figure out how to get from here to here.
Yeah, well, exactly what you were just talking about. Like, if you're up there, how do you know? So that's amazing. So you're creating like digital platform app, like that kind of that's what we're waiting for. Okay, that's so exciting.
So exciting. Yeah, we're really, really excited. And we're going, you know, it's a real period of growth for us. We're going to be onboarding some new board directors right now. So we're really excited about making those announcements in the next couple of weeks. It's really exciting. And I'm very, you know, the future is bright, and we are continuing not only as an organization, but, you know, as our network across the country. It feels like we are on the brink of, you know, increased access, increased support, and we're doing it not alone. We're doing it because so many people are using their voices and their platforms and their, you know, connections to help move that.
Yeah, I love that.
Because of the mission,
and
access for Canadians forward.
That's amazing. I have been kind of using this analogy with Oasis the last 6 months because I feel like it fits for you guys too at FMC, but like I feel like, you know, for the last little bit we've been like pushing a big snowball up a hill, and it's like slowly getting traction and slowly collecting snow and becoming this like bigger thing. But we're like at the top, I'm about to push it down the other side, and it's just gonna like go and kill, like, you know, just like grow and explode, and with the help of all the people, you know, doing it together. And I'm like, I love that for you guys. I think that's amazing, and I love it for Canada and for Canadians who need access to care and support and all the things. So amazing. It's great.
I know. And it's, you know, hopefully it doesn't take too long, but you feel it. Like we talk about very similarly. It's like we're just at the breaking point, like it's gonna just spill over, you know. So it feels amazing that, you know, hopefully this year so many more people are going to access it, and there are generations of Canadians coming behind us.
I think about that all the time too. I think about that all the time. Like, we are just like a blip on the line of like, it, you know, eternity is a strong word, but like
it's true.
You know, the rest of the, you know, I always think about like technology and science and where is it going, and like, you know, by the time my kid's gonna have a kid, maybe he just takes like a piece of his DNA and they create a sperm, and they don't even need to, you know, like there's going to be so many exciting things happening in this space. And but I think access to care, it just needs to get easier. And like, you know, you're doing a great job of making that happen, and, you know, giving Canadians a voice, you know, breaking the stigma, which is a huge part of access to care, because people feel like they can talk about it without, you know, being embarrassed and all the things. So I think the hardest work that will ever be done for the fertility community is happening, has happened in the last 10 years, is happening right now. You know, the pioneers, you know, 45 years ago who were doing this work, you know, like that's the hardest part. It has to get easier. It just has to, like, that's just the only way that it can go.
That's it.
You know?
And we need this army of engaged people, because the reality is the more we continue to pick up, you know, the issue and move it forward, the quicker, the faster, the more efficient, the better. The outcomes. So, and listen, there's going to be a program, you know, the feds are, you know, I would bet that there's going to be a program that comes forward, and there's going to be work there, and it's not going to be overnight. However, that program, you know, the advocacy doesn't stop when a provincial program gets put in place. And we're seeing that we're seeing that in Ontario with Conceivable Dreams. They had a program for 10 years, and now it's better now. Like, once something gets implemented, it doesn't mean the advocacy stops.
No.
So we just need to continue to invite people, you know, to be engaged and ask questions and use their voices. And our organizations can help you find the words when you don't know what words to use.
Yeah. I think you're onto something there. Like, funding is only the tip of the iceberg when it comes to like the issue of infertility, and like all of the other things that are sort of below the surface beyond funding. Like, once we tackle funding, then we're going to tackle the mental health part, then we're going to tackle the stigma, you know, even beyond that, you know, like we could go, like you said, the advocacy doesn't stop, and funding is just, once we fund it for everybody globally across Canada, okay, what's the next worst thing about this journey? And we're not going to stop until like people can go through it and say, you know what, it was hard, it sucked, but like, I was fully funded, I had all the mental health support that I could possibly need, I had community, I had everything that I needed to get me through it. And so, like, that's, you know, then we'll stop. We'll probably be
exactly
like, way in the ground when that happens. But I think we're doing, like, you know, the work that we can now and supporting the community. And I think, like, you know, we're just going to keep bringing people together to do it. So,
agreed. Totally.
Yeah. Well, I think, like, we should end there. That was
It went by really fast.
I know.
We found it like engaging and fast for them too.
Yes, totally. I know. We had a great time. We hope everybody else enjoyed the conversation.
You know.
Great. Well, thank you so much again for joining. Just quickly before we close, and I'll put it all in the show notes, but I think people can find FMC, Fertility Matters Canada, but you can just give us your social media and your all your good stuff.
Yeah, so find us on social at Fertility _Canada. I should look that up. I'm saying Fertility _Canada. I think that's it. Yeah. fertilitymatters.ca. If you want to connect with me, I'm Carolyn.Dubé, Dube, and Carolyn 2 N's. So we're across all the platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook. We have free Facebook, like groups that you can join. But we have all of our information, and if you need to access, please reach out to us anytime. If you're looking for, you know, like a second opinion, you have questions, well, we can help connect you to the experts that can answer those questions for you, free of charge for you. So we're happy to do that.
Amazing. Thank you so much again. And, you know, we'll see you around. I'm sure we'll see you.
Absolutely.
We're going to see you. Take care.
Someday.
Yes, I will.
Okay, bye.
We'll talk to you soon. Bye.